I'm Tim Gordon with your weekly recap. We'll be catching you up on some of the biggest stories of the week. Our top story this week is the developing investigation into the former employee of Multnomah Athletic Club who drove a car filled with explosives into the building last weekend. As of this week, the club's leaders said there is no timeline to reopen to members. This all started last Saturday. The club's general manager says 49-year-old Bruce Whitman drove into the building, sending glass and debris everywhere, and ended up in an event room. Whitman, a former employee at the MAC, was fired in 2019 after what the general manager called, quote, a repeated, well-documented series of agitations and aggressive behavior toward both staff and members. His mother and cousin told KGW on Monday Whitman struggled with serious mental health problems, including bipolar disorder and possibly schizophrenia.
But I can tell you there was a long history of conversations that we were having with city officials about our fears and concerns about the escalated behavior by Mr. Whitman.
The GM says while the room that the vehicle ended up in was not severely damaged, most of the mess came from sprinklers going off, along with some lingering effects from smoke. He also said the club's #1 goal now is making sure the building is safe for members. Whitman had several interactions with law enforcement over the past 5 years, but was never forced into mental health treatment, something the Multnomah County DA says could have helped in this case.
It's another sad example of where we need a system that serves those that are suffering from mental illness in a way that is more long-term, more in-depth.
The KGW investigative team has been covering the high bar for what's called civil commitment in Oregon. Several conditions must be met to force someone to get treatment. And on top of that, there's little room in the Oregon State Hospital. That's because the state has prioritized patients who are criminal defendants who've been ordered to receive care so they can aid in their own defense. Many advocates say the best strategy is to build more treatment options for early intervention, although again, that would rely on people voluntarily accepting help, and Whitman's family says he turned down treatment referrals. You can learn much more about civil commitment and the requirements in Oregon in our full follow-up story at kgw.com. And please remember, there's a hotline to help those who are struggling with a mental health crisis. You can call or text 988 anytime. That's the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to be connected with local counselors. A Vancouver foster parent who's cared for more than 50 children over a decade, now accused of child sex abuse. Police worry there may be additional victims and that haven't come forward yet. Alma McCarty has more, but we should warn you, some of these details are disturbing.
A Vancouver man who'd fostered dozens of children now faces a series of charges, from child molestation to rape and assault. According to court documents, a minor, previously in the suspect's care as a foster child for 3 years, reported multiple instances of sexual abuse. The most recent, he said, happened 2 weekends ago during a visit to the home. The teen said his primary concern in reporting what happened was so this doesn't happen again and to anyone else. Last week, Vancouver police executed a search warrant and arrested 62-year-old Daryl Slack at his home. Officers say he'd been a foster parent to more than 50 children between 2013 and 2025.
My first thought when I saw the date was that the perpetrator was a foster parent when I was a foster parent.
Sarah Desjarlais is the executive director of Fosterful, a nonprofit supporting kids experiencing foster care.
Our job is to be with them every step of the way.
Recently, they started the Caregiver Support Project, providing an extra set of eyes and a confidant for foster children.
We're providing a trusted adult that gets to spend time with that kid and builds skills, talks about advocating for themselves, about protecting themselves, about their own bodily autonomy. We're coaching these kids every step of the way, if it's called for, of course. And it's also just an added layer of protection and support for the caregiver.
Her team wasn't aware of this case or this foster parent. While she says the vast majority of foster homes have hearts of gold, tough situations like this are part of their purpose.
We want to create that positive change and help the trajectory of foster care change. So we've chosen to place ourselves in the middle of it and not shy away from the hard stuff.
Alma McCarty, KGW News.
In an update, a Portland firefighter arrested for sending sexually explicit messages, including images, to a child has pleaded not guilty to all charges. 59-year-old Vincent Alvarez was in court Thursday afternoon. Investigators say he sent messages to a minor in Deschutes County, including from a northeast Portland fire station. Portland Fire and Rescue placed him on leave after he was arrested. Well, this week, Portland police say 6 teenage girls are now safe after they were rescued from sex trafficking. Officers say the girls as young as 13 were all found along 82nd Avenue and within 3 weeks of each other, although it's not clear yet if there is more of a connection.
As we work these investigations, I believe we'll find a thread or something that connects all these victims together.
The thing that we really need survivors to come forward with is trafficking, right? How they got there, who helped them get there, who's facilitating this, who's gaining the money from it.
Also this week, Portland City Council approved an ordinance that holds business owners accountable for human or drug trafficking near their properties. A business can be labeled a chronic nuisance if 3 or more reports are filed within 90 days, requiring it to enhance security and better train its staff. And a reminder, if you or someone you know is a survivor of sexual assault and need help, it's available 24/7. One resource for you, the National Sexual Assault Hotline. The number is 800-656-4673. In other headlines, authorities this week have identified the man shot and killed near the Portland waterfront as 25-year-old Malachi Bussey. A second victim was also hit and is expected to survive that shooting. The shots were fired around 10:30 Tuesday night, about a block away from where the Cinco de Mayo fiesta was all wrapping up.
What I heard was loud bangs, so I wanted to investigate a little further of was this a shooting, was this a bang? Pushed closer and slowly ended up getting told by security to head out. And then all of a sudden I turned to the left and I see people ramming through the gate. I see moms carrying their kids in those strollers, and that kind of signaled to me something was up.
Cinco de Mayo festival officials say the shooting did not take place at the event, but staff gave first aid to one of those victims. And as of this recording on Friday afternoon, no one's been arrested. We got to take a look at this. This is the moment Daniel Wagner's home security camera captured a white Ford Explorer speeding down Southeast Oakfield Road in Clackamas County before nearly hitting another car head-on. Authorities say the driver tried to speed away from sheriff's deputies in Milwaukee after a homeowner reported a possible burglary. And you can see the SUV roll over just past the intersection. And at one point, the driver was nearly thrown from the car out the sunroof. You see that right there. Wagner says crashes happen here almost every week.
I've had people come through my yard and go through fences in my yard and stuff. Luckily, my cars have not been hit yet.
Police say the driver, 43-year-old Scotty Oldfield, was taken to the hospital in serious condition. He's charged with reckless driving, attempting to elude police, DUI, theft, and burglary.
Why was this guy on the streets? I don't understand.
That is the question swirling in one woman's mind after a man who'd just gotten out of jail for another alleged crime stole her car and sent her friend to the hospital. Helena Wolf says she was carjacked at PDX while she and her friend were being picked up there at the airport. She says the driver was out of the car helping load luggage when a man hopped in and drove off. Her friend Mark was halfway in the back seat and ended up getting dragged and eventually fell out. To make matters worse, Wolf had just returned from picking up her brother's cremated remains.
Am I going to get my car back? Am I going to get what's in it back? Cremains are irreplaceable. And family heirlooms are irreplaceable. And so all this stuff is simultaneously going through my head. But mostly I was concerned about Mark.
Mark suffered broken ribs and a concussion, and at last check was in the ICU. Police arrested 52-year-old Vidal Pedraza, who is also suspected of smashing several cars with a rock in downtown Portland last week. Wolf's vehicle was recovered at a Dutch Bros not far from the airport.
Well, when they're on the ship, I'm very concerned because the ability to treat somebody in that critical state here on this boat is non-existent.
This week, we heard from an Oregon doctor who is on board that cruise ship that is the site of a hantavirus outbreak, one that's killed at least 3 people. And while more than 100 passengers are still on board, health officials across 4 continents are working to track those who've disembarked to figure out who may have been exposed. The World Health Organization cautioning this is not the next pandemic and reiterating the risk to the public remains low. On Thursday, Devin Haskins spoke with the Bend oncologist who now has dual roles, passenger and physician.
5 weeks ago, Dr. Stephen Kornfeld started his dream trip, spending his days watching and seeing some of his favorite birds. Here he is, standing amongst penguins.
I do a lot of bird watching trips and many bird watching trips, and this has just been a dream trip for me for a long time because it goes to islands that you cannot get to any other way.
But that dream trip soon went sideways. Passengers started getting sick, and then one man died on April 11th.
At the time, there was no sense that it was an infectious disease. We thought it was just one of those things, and the cruise continued.
Dr. Kornfeld, an oncologist from Bend, soon started seeing other passengers also get sick and asked the ship's crew if he could help. That's when he learned the ship's doctor was also very ill.
I just sort of fell into the role of ship physician, and as things deteriorated and more people got sick.
He says he treated 2 passengers who were medically evacuated on Wednesday and tried to treat another passenger who ultimately passed away.
I felt a little, a bit on my own, having to take care of these people and trying to get them medically evacuated.
The World Health Organization says there have been 5 confirmed cases and 3 suspected infections of the hantavirus. 3 people have died. It's a virus that is spread from rodents to humans. And health officials say a rare strain of the virus has been detected that can spread between humans.
While ships have a lot of medical equipment, they're not geared for this kind of event.
Kornfeld says the mood on the ship has settled down a bit, and he hasn't seen any passengers with new symptoms in several days.
We're still, kind of having meals in the dining room, but kind of COVID era meals. Everybody's spaced out because the ship's only half full now, and we're all wearing masks.
Devin Haskins, KGW News.
To a developing story in Portland, the city's mayor this week revealed that more than 1,000 apartments, all affordable housing units, are sitting empty. It raises a big question. How can so many units be vacant in the middle of a housing crisis? This week, Mayor Keith Wilson brought attention to the issue, saying more than 1,600 affordable housing units in Portland are currently sitting empty. And we've learned there are several reasons why. Many of the units are set for people making 60% of the area median income. For a single person, that's about $52,000 a year. For many people, that's still out of reach. Other factors include evictions tied to unpaid rent, maintenance issues, a lengthy referral process as well. But for people living outside, the delays don't make any sense.
Oh, God, dude, that's absolute garbage. If they're empty, what's the point of even having them?
It's not fair to the people that are sitting there waiting for homes.
If we got affordable housing, you should let us get it instead of holding on to it. Because it's rough out here, man.
The Portland Housing Bureau does not directly manage affordable housing units. The properties are owned and operated by housing providers, a lot of them nonprofits, of course. We're told that Mayor Wilson has a team of people focused specifically on finding housing vacancies and moving people out of shelter and into permanent homes. An Oregon nonprofit is suing Oregon State Police, accusing the agency of sharing personal data with federal immigration agents, violating the state's sanctuary laws. The group, called Rural Organizing Project, claims that between this February and last February, federal authorities accessed Oregon driver's licenses and vehicle registration data 1.4 million times through a national law enforcement database, a system that allows different jurisdictions to share data. OSP says it has not violated state sanctuary laws, but would not comment further on pending litigation. The nation's largest union in the United States has been hit with a civil rights complaint after holding a conference in Portland last year. The Brandeis Center claims the National Education Association, that's a teachers union with more than 3 million members, discriminated against Jewish educators by creating a hostile environment. The nonprofit alleges Jewish union members were shouted down during the convention, even mocked and harassed. In response, the NEA released a statement saying it does not tolerate anti-Semitism in any form. Some good news, Legacy and Regents have agreed on a new contract, meaning Legacy providers will remain in-network for Regents patients. The previous contract lapsed in early April, with the main issue being reimbursement rates. Under the new contract, if a patient was treated at Legacy from April 1st through now, Regents will retroactively process those claims as in-network. Well, scientists are working to protect some of our most precious pollinators from an invasive fly, one that has spread through the Northwest and beyond. As Catherine Cook reports, there's now a local effort to find solutions.
In this wildflower field in Aurora, workers are buzzing with excitement. So cute. And so are the bees. Mason bees, to be exact, pollinating 95% of everything they land on.
And they belly flop onto the flowers, and they get completely covered in loose pollen.
So protecting them from the invasive Houdini fly,
these really have the potential to hurt our mason bee populations,
is a critical mission for Abigail Leonard. She's here from UC Davis studying how mason bees and the parasite interact. Native to Europe, the Houdini fly showed up in Seattle 8 years ago and has quickly spread along the West Coast and beyond.
You know, they look like a tiny little fruit fly flying around your bee hotel.
Leonard says mason bees nest in hollowed reeds or stems where they collect pollen for their young.
Now the Houdini fly, it's a very aggressive parasite. It sits and waits at the nest entrance for that mason bee female to go out and collect pollen and nectar, and then it sneaks in and lays its eggs on the pollen that the bee left for her larvae.
Right now, Leonard says Houdini flies are impacting 1 out of every 3 mason bees. But how many flies are doing that damage? She hopes to find the answers in these cages. Each one is equipped with a special bee hotel, bees, and a varying number of Houdini flies.
If we get the same amount of parasitism in a cage with 2 flies as a cage with 16 flies, we know that just 2 flies are capable of doing a lot of damage.
The OSU Extension Office planted this Phacelia last fall. It's native to the West Coast, and mason bees love it. Planting some in your yard is just one thing you can do to help support the mason bee population.
As the Houdini fly are spreading so quickly, and they're just devastating to our sweet little bees.
Tira McKelvey is with Rent Mason Bees, which supplied these bee hotels for the study. They're different than those you might find in a hardware store, made from bamboo and drilled wood, which McKelvey cautions against using.
And you have to be able to open everything up and clean in the fall. And so when you see these cute little bee hotels, please don't get them. They're going to be harmful. They'll be predator habitats if you're not managing and taking care of them.
Taking care of the pollinators that are taking care of us. In Aurora, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Got to get those flies. All right, downtown Portland, better get ready for a packed spring and summer, one that's being dubbed Portland's Renaissance. There are a ton of events planned at Pioneer Courthouse Square, the waterfront, and the new Darcel 15 Plaza. They include classics like the Blues Fest and noon tunes on the square, along with new events like free art in the park and a mass wedding that'll be part of Portland Pride, I should say. While downtown may still be struggling with office vacancies, foot traffic has been on the rise.
Every time somebody comes to downtown Portland, they bring in about $40 per visit. And when you think about the 4 million visitors we're expecting at our large-scale events, that's 160 million by my simple math. That drives our economy.
Not only are they bringing the fans and the attendees of events to come and spend their money and also make memories, it keeps local businesses in, it fills up the hotels, it fills the restaurants.
Now the hope is this summer will outpace last for foot traffic, which was the busiest downtown since the pandemic.
I'm meteorologist Rod Hill with this Mother's Day weekend update. Again, I always remind you, whether you're looking at a forecast on a phone, watching a TV station, it's always important to know when was that forecast published, if you will. We're putting this down for you on Friday morning. And one of the news stories on Friday was the Pine Mountain fire that started Thursday when a prescribed burn had some spot fires outside of the boundary, grew to 1,500 acres and declared a wildfire. Now, the weather patterns this weekend are very favorable overall for crews to at least control this blaze. But if you've heard about this, I wanted to show you. Here's Bend, there's Redmond, and way up here is Sisters, and of course there's Mount Bachelor. So this is over in the southeastern section of Deschutes County, and for the most part burning pretty good distance away from the main resort or populated areas of Deschutes County. So I wanted to show you that. And this is a live camera from Friday morning up at Timberline, but look at all the bare spots. Sure to grow as we warm up in the valley to 80 degrees on Saturday. The Palmer Snowfield they use for the summer camps right here, and they are operating the Palmer chairlift and the Magic Mile, both the chairlifts above the lodge. But for this time of the year, that catches your eye how quickly and how vast the barren spots are growing. They are reporting where they're still operating the ski and boarding operations, still 50 inches on the ground up at Timberline. Okay, we dealt with this passing weather system on Friday. Behind it, we're going to see a warm up on Saturday, and then it still looks like we'll get a push of morning marine clouds on Mother's Day morning. So here's your weekend Futurecast movie, starting with Friday at 5 p.m., just showing some partly cloudy skies across the area. You wake up Saturday, this is showing maybe some low clouds or fog in the valley, but overall, this will quickly go on to be a mostly sunny day, not perfectly clear, but mostly sunny day with warming temperatures. Now here is Sunday morning, Mother's Day. Some mid to high level clouds pushing through the gorge, but a lot of low cloudiness coming into the coast and the valley. And whenever we get these marine pushes of cloudiness, you shouldn't ever be surprised if all of a sudden there's a bit of mist or drizzle with them. But right now it looks like our classic morning clouds on Sunday giving way to afternoon sunshine. And if that's the case, then Mother's Day will get up to about 70. And overall, we'll look back at the weekend and say, hey, it was pretty nice. So mostly sunny skies coming for Saturday, nearing 80. The morning cloud cover giving way to afternoon sun and hitting 70 on Mother's Day. And then we still are tracking a surface north to east wind direction on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with a warming air mass. I've got 3 days in a row hitting 80 or better. A little bit of a cool down on Thursday of next week. And we could actually get into some rain chances either Friday or going into that following weekend.
Thanks to Rod for that, and that is a wrap on your weekly recap. I'm Tim Gordon. You can catch up on the latest headlines anytime on KGW.com, your KGW app, or our YouTube channel. Have a good day.